Hey guys, this is Miko here. I'm doing another video. This one's gonna be a VOD review of a medium IGBB point player for maximum effort, and it's versus minus 15k. So these are considered to be some of the best companies. I forget if it's Valhalla or Marama, but they're supposed to be the best companies on their server and are facing off. So I know this one's gonna be good. I'm gonna be. We can't see the gear obviously from the beginning of this, but we can see he's running vines, probably the brutal one. A pretty standard bar. The only thing is running gemstone over oak, but on Deady Point that generally makes sense. And it's a pylon based build, so he's gonna go all really fast. Rune glass in both gems and both weapons, so he's gonna get those very fast. Definitely prioing the build time over the actual damage. No Going no haste off the bat when you have an IG, I believe, is generally a mistake. You'll generally be able to get enough coins economy to be worth the sacrifice, and then you're able to get an early shower up somewhere like here, and that will just prevent this entire force of the enemy from being able to push into you. That often could be enough to win your team the first fight, especially on this map, because if you force the enemy team to fight on the edge of this like kind of ridge area when bruisers on their side kind of peek over the ridge, they'll inherently LOS the enemy healers. So enemy healers tend to stand up like on these like weird rock areas or off to the side, and then that's easier pickings for your decks. That's kind of a minor thing, but that's the reason why a lot of people haste, especially on this map off the start. And why 50 manning the side point is especially good on Everfall compared to 50 manning B point from an attacker perspective. Attackers easily win that neutral engage. Nothing crazy happening yet. That was good in terms of like where the actual bomb was placed. That was pretty good. I think you should have gone a little bit further into this clump. Like you detonate it a little bit early. You can kind of let it skip off the ground before you make it proc. So like instead of it just like bouncing off of there, you could have skipped it into this clump over here, and then you could have procced it there, or you could have shot it in the air and let it spread out a little bit more and then hit all these guys with their plague. The reason why I think it's a little bit better is because you're not looking to actually maximize how much damage you're doing with a heavy build or even with a medium build on point. If you have plague splitting grenade on your weapon, you're not looking to maximize your damage with the BB nades. In my opinion, you're trying to spread the plague as much as possible. So you're trying to use it basically as a mini bile. So I think that's like slight mistake, but kind of minor. You could have hit the disease on like 5 more people basically, which is a lot, but it's not that big of a mistake. This iframe usage is really good. You're kind of zoomed in too. I think you could zoom out a little bit more with your camera and see a little bit more around you. I like the shower a lot because it actually affects both of these and keeps you safe. The pylon placement's good. That's a spot that won't normally get hit, and you're also hitting the healers, which means you're going to get your ult super fast from the pylon burst perk if you're running it, which I believe you should be running. This is really good nades. This is a really easy vines. This is my problem with vines and one of the reasons why I like bile. And I feel like I have to point this out because I've been so up and running bile recently, but at the time of this VOD, it was definitely not as popular. It was like before that patch. But like you use vines here, right? And you would think that this kills this guy, and it forces cooldowns on this guy. Instead, this guy gets out for free because he used cleanse early. This other guy just dodged it, and then your vines gets no value, and that's a spot where bile would have easily hit all 3 of these people, lingered and hit more people. So it's like one of the reasons why I'm so in favor of bile, especially on Deady Point. Reload your weapon challenge. Okay, this works. Yeah, going to your secondary and then swapping back honestly is more consistent than reloading on the BB sometimes. Especially if you're looking to dodge, going to Ice Gauntlet to dodge tends to be really nice, especially if you don't have ramp. But you have ramp, so that makes sense why you're trying to stay on your BB. So you just need to like let your dodge finish. 200 con on point with ramp is kind of an interesting setup from a blunderbuss perspective, because when you actually look at this tree, if I pull up New World Skill Builder, if you look at this tree where you have this setup, you have to make a sacrifice basically, because you have to get all of these perks in order to get to double down. And then when it comes to left tree, because you go so much into everything here, you have to run it like this, which means that you don't have fortify aggression, which on point I think is a little bit sus. but running 200 con with this, I think is a decent balance. So I'm like happy with that overall, but this is like one of the reasons why I think Betty Point slotted more with the blast shot like super utility is a little bit better at times because you have a lot more survivability. Apparatus isn't really affected; it's not affected by freedom, but the initial party net shot is. So this just makes it insane. This builds ult very fast. You have more survivability with these perks. You don't really do damage anymore when you go that route, but you end up with a decent amount more util. So that's kind of an interesting situation where like because he is running it this way and he has the ramp, which you can see down here, he has to give up the fortify aggression, which means that he's inherently less tanky, which means he has to play a little bit further away from melees in general, which you can see him doing with his vines, so or his like ice showers. So playing around your kit really, really well, but it's like at that point it's like a little bit harder to call yourself like a full Deddy player because you're more of a support player who's on point rather than a player that's always on point. Still a really good setup though. That's really good awareness, good comms. At this point, they're rotating to C and doing a late crash on B, and most of his army has rotated off B, so he's just trying to stay alive at this point from a Deddy perspective. He's not trying to do too much. This is good, but the problem with this, so I'm gonna talk about every ult just because of like how I've been recently with Bile. So you would think this would be an insane ult, right? Like you're hitting this guy right in front of your bruiser, you're hitting this guy. This guy just used some pots, he's gonna be rooted. This guy is going for a grab combo. You hit this, like, it does hit this guy, so this is good value. This other guy dodges it. So you basically traded for one ult, and then this guy just tombs and it does nothing. So at that point, say you bile here, you hit this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, you force the tomb. It does the same thing plus more, which is another reason why I prefer bile. My like what I like to say now at this point is if you're not getting a kill with vines 60 to 80% of the time, bile is generally better, and that's one of the reasons why I would say that. It's like its lows are a lot better. The floor of Biles a lot better than but Vines' highs are a lot better than Biles. It's just hard to find a Vines high. So this is like all you can do. At this point, your army has to make a decision. I think most armies would just choose to give up B here. You could also go for a crash if you win the C fight, which it looks like you guys are doing. But you see hear what I'm talking about right now. They're like, are we gonna retake this? It's like we need more. So I think this was a mistake this entire time. So if I go back to here, when you're having this conversation, the rest of your army is going to be pushing up through this side. So you are going to basically make a wall like right here. You want to kind of build angles on this. So I would say if you're here early, you want to try to position over towards this area. You want to try to position over towards this area. You're trying to make it so that people have no comfort spot to play, and that sets you up later because then you can drop an ice shower right here, or you could drop an ice shower right here, and then it forces these guys in red to not be able to back up because they'll walk in your ice shower, which traps people on point and results in more people dying on point. It also puts you in a spot where if you get hit by melees, that is inherently pulling pressure away from their army. But this can only be accomplished if you rotate early and you don't spend this time that you're talking about and thinking if you should go in and start making that rotate. If they actually cap this point, most people in this situation where there's only 3 minutes on the clock will typically go for a buy phase. And when they go for a buy phase, that means you won't get pressure and you'll be able to rotate off to C for free anyways, so you're not losing much by going for this. If it's later on, like say that this is like a 22-minute play, I would probably not go for this aggro play on the side because they would have cleanse economy and they would just try to tempo it to C, the red team. So you would be more likely to get caught, but given this is this early in a war, I think it makes sense to rotate early. From a being scared perspective, this is about all you can do though. Like you should be trying to farm your ramp stacks though. You should be trying to go in with ramp and then try to lob this with ramp instead of just not doing anything. So I think it's also a soft error, but this is pretty typical to give B in this kind of situation and go to C, especially because there's pressure on C. Because if you lose B and C at the same time, it's just an awful situation. It's better just to focus on one fight at that point. And it's a reason why splitting on attack is so strong too. Your damage here is really significant. My gripe is make sure you're facing your camera this way because you could have very easily been blindsided. So you try to position your character so that you can actually see what's going on there a little bit better. or at least like turn around every now and then. Like right here, I'd be doing a 180 looking behind me versus just tunneling on these guys because you could just get blindsided by a melee and just die. And you see them start to wrap here. Say that those melees got through here and got to you, like you wouldn't be dead necessarily, but it would force all your cooldowns and you'd be in a really awkward spot. Or if you're trying to retreat from these guys, you'd likely go away from where the melee is crashing in, and then that would have led right into their red wall over here, and you would have been pincered and probably just died. So you have to be really wary of that when there's a rotate happening. Typically, attackers will either rotate straight through the bond or they'll wrap around. This was a straight through bond, but because they got cleansed, it was less fast. But if they did not buy cleanse, I think he would have been dead here, just based off of like what was happening. This is okay. In my opinion, if you're a blunderbuss and you're set up like you are with ramp stacks, I would try to focus my damage on the squishy people. So I'd be looking towards like this healer. I'd be looking towards people over here, and I'd be anchoring on the edge of point, but I wouldn't necessarily be focusing the clump unless I had my grenades or I had my shower. Everything else should just be towards the edge of point unless you have grenades, uh, shower, or you have your vines, and then you should start looking at the clump. So you need to like I think try to figure out that hybrid rule aspect of like where are you gonna break those normal rules of pumping point because this damage isn't doing anything, and versus a healer, this could force them to move. That shower is very good. Now you look for point, right? Now you look for your vines, you look for your grenade, you try to rotate out a little bit, be a little safer. This is the part right here where I would say switch. Don't shoot this clump anymore, shoot the healers. The damage here won't be significant. The damage here will force Sacreds on the healers and force them to have to do something else. You also have a big healer clump right here that you could shoot. You have a lot better decisions than just shooting this clump before that is under a Sacred, so you're effectively going to do no damage. This was what I would call pad and not pressure. If you shot the healers, it would be forcing pressure and would not be pad. I'm being like really hard on you, but I'm only being hard because I know you're good because you're in Maxima versus minus 15k, and those are good companies. You could have ice tombed here and broke it, and then you would get the shower instantly, and then you could drop the shower in the freshing thing, and then you would get your tomb back quicker, and you could have got the haste to rotate back in this direction, which would have been the safest play. This is a bit greedier, and you lose your blast chance because of it. Not bad, but could have been better. This is a good shower, or a good tomb. I should have manually broken it. I don't want to talk about the dodge there. It's a little bit too insignificant to talk about, but that wasn't ideal. And now you're forced in a spot where you can't go in. You really should be playing the Sacreds. It's not. This isn't like bad, but now you're gonna have to pre-pot before you get in. You're not gonna have your pop for when you're in the fight, and then you're very likely just gonna die here. You have to, yeah. You effectively kill yourself because you didn't play in the Sacred here. And what I mean by that is if you play in the Sacred over here and I mean, part of this started like this early, but then here, if you go back to this part, if you play in this Sacred, you heal up. You have your pots here on cooldown. Then you can pre-pot when you actually get to point, and then you're not forced in a weird spot where you're dodging into point, and then you have to immediately dodge out because you have no HP to play with and you have no pots to play with because you use both those to get in, and then you're just going to die because of that. Again, this player is very good because they're in a I would consider to be a upper tier 2, lower tier 1, probably upper tier 2 company in New World, but it's just the being nitpicky because they are that good. Which the last VOD I did was also from a tier 1 company, which is why I'm being a little bit more nitpicky with these VODs in general. This one, minor thing, just you don't have a horn here, but I would rotate over here and blow the horn. The reason why it's good for a BB to blow the horn is because BB can't die if they blow the horn. Dex often can die if they blow the horn, so can healers. So it makes sense for mages to blow horns because bruises want to drop naturally. So just dump your ability and go to the horn, in my opinion. Blow it before it breaks. Not bad, in my opinion. I back this up like 1 second. You know that these guys are getting forced out. You see that this guy is in tomb. You see that this guy has melees on him and he is surrounded by your team and is making like a triangle around him. I think you go to Ice Gauntlet here, you drop your shower here, they run into your ice shower, they stam themselves, and then you get a free vines that they can't get out of just because they have no stamina iframe it. Instead, you look at this. I mean, you did it early, but this doesn't do anything. This shower doesn't do anything. Again, another spot where I think honestly a vines is better there than a bile, but a bile would consistently get that value, and vines it's a little bit more conditional. So that's 3 vines so far, and they didn't result in any kills. I'm gonna wait till the gates are down, fast forward to that, because nothing's gonna happen till then. Okay, this is another thing too. When you're farming like this is really good. You should be on your have your pylon out, have your ice gauntlet out, and you should be dodging to proc the pylon perk that makes it shoot faster, which I'll show. Where is my right tab? This is my right tab. If you go to ice pylon tree, so this is not ice pylon tree, this is standard tree. If I go to an ice pylon tree, which would look something like this, there's a perk in here called Pylon Dodge. It'll make the pylon fire right away. You can basically let the pylon shoot, and then you can instantly dodge right after, and it'll make it double fire, which basically means, or like fire like immediately. So then you'll build your ult significantly faster that way. And the reason why I say build your ult is because your damage in this situation is not significant, and having your vines for their actual push is a lot more significant. So I'd be trying to dodge to get that pylon. I would also be, if I back this up a little bit more. Okay, maybe a lot more. Yeah. If I back this up to this part where I skipped right through here, drop your. Oh, you don't have your pylon yet. Okay, never mind then. I was gonna say drop your pylon on your dummy because it'll get you the ult charge the fastest because the pylon burst will hit both the dummies and you'll get the shots off on the dummies. But even here, I would drop a pylon right here so it could shoot the dummies and you would get your ult faster versus dropping it in mains if someone can break it or it can just hit no one. Putting on the dummies is more consistent. Your main goal, if you don't have ult, is to build ult when you get into fort. And you're not trying to use ult right away, you're trying to hold ult for their big push, but you want to have your ult available for their big push. So right here when you're on Blunderbuss, I think this is a mistake. You should be on Ice Gauntlet here, just trying to farm your ult. Because Ice Gauntlet, if you do the dodges, will be a faster build time than Blunderbuss, and Blunderbuss doesn't have the range to actually shoot them here. This is really good. This shower is very solid. You see the stacked attack on B strat. This is pretty standard at this point. Even though this VOD is like 4 days old, it's pretty typical right now to have attackers do like I'd say 15 to 30 man push on B. 30 is on the high end. I'd say normally it's like a 15 to 20/25 push on B, and then they'll put the rest of people on the side points. Usually it is a Deady group and there's 2 of them. There's a Dex group and there's 1 of them, and then there's a Ball group. Let me not do Dex with a D again. There's 1 Dex group and then there's 1 ball group on B. This is the part where there's 1 to 2 ball groups on B. And that's where you get that 20 to 25. The reason why you want a lower amount of people is because then this 1 Dex group inherently gets a lot of value, and then you don't have to put as many Dex groups there. Because if you increase this number and they increase their number on defense, and the Dex group inherently gets less value, and that pressure turns into pad very, very quickly the more people that you have on B. And you have to put more Dex on people to compensate for that, and Dex players don't like to play on B typically because they don't actually do that much. But you need the Dex players on B so that your healers can play on this B choke and heal you on point, because there's no other really safe, consistent spot to heal people on point. Yeah, that shower earlier was really, really good. Now that you know they're pushing, this should be a spot where you're looking to grenade. I don't like this like running away thing for your pylon. I would drop the grenade first and then look for my pylon. Your team won it, but I think that was a little bit of an error. This is fine. Getting hit by that guy doesn't mean anything. Okay, you have a free ult right here. Yep. This is a good vines. So 1 in 4 vines I'd say is good. You still see that guy gets out for free. He doesn't die. So another spot where I say this every time. If you dropped a bile here, that would hit 4 to 5 people, maybe more that walked into it, and it would probably force the pot that guy used as well. So You could also just drop Bile with a choke and let people run through it, and then it will just hit everyone that runs in that does not have Cleanse Pot up, which tends to be a lot of value, because it could actually cover the entire choke. Mechanic thing, your BB range is not that long, just shoot the guy that's in your face. This is really good. This shower is very, very good. It lets his team get out, it lets some people push up, and it helps control the zone a little bit better. This is another spot where if you went the blunderbuss tree with the blast shot, then you would have the longer net shot here, and this is a spot where you could actually kill these bruisers with that longer net shot, and it could set you up for your blunderbuss a little bit better. What I mean by that is you get to, so like how the apparatus works, if you look at that tree, which is something like uh, this. This is the super util tree that people hate to run, but is typically run if you're looking at a Duddy point build with BB with you're not doing damage. What apparatus and why this is so good is because freedom affects this initial net shot, but it doesn't affect apparatus. So that means you have a 50% slow for 5.5 seconds that you can put on the target with a very short cooldown. So that's just a thing that can inherently just kill bruisers, especially if you have exhaustive net shot. This perk is also just inherent to be on Bile if you run Bile, so Bile has a very similar effect, where you throw that on a bruiser that has no stam, you throw that on a healer that is like trying to push in, and it can very easily kill them, but you won't necessarily notice it unless you look really close at the VOD. Really good shower. Your shower usages are really, really good. How you play around refreshing frost, I'd say, is a little bit on the weaker side, but your shower usage is really good. That's a really, really good vines. Even though it doesn't get kills, that forces 3 people's cooldowns, puts a rend on people, it results in kills. So I'd say 2 out of 5 or 6 vines at this point have gotten value, so I'd say you're above the norm. I like how you guys aren't like really panicking at all that you're in your fort. A lot of people would panic when you're in your fort in this situation. Like you still have the horns up on the actual B rampart, so you are completely safe right now. The attackers have no business being in here. Those should be broken right now, but they're rushing this. Not exactly sure why minus 15k is rushing this and not trying to break. Not the horn over here, but there's a horn on the right. Another 50-50. Honestly, these fights in the choke are like really, really deep. Like you guys should be fighting like way out here, in my opinion. But I think that's really, really hard unless you have an SNS player. And if you have an SNS player, you could play like up here in the choke because the SNS just blocks all the range damage and you can just play behind him and it's very easy to sacred. But without the SNS player, this is about the best you could do, and you could just have to contest them every time they run in, which isn't bad, but like they're getting pretty close to having a 50-50. Like they're getting to, I'd say here is their line normally. That line should be back here, or maybe even here. So that's like really far in your choke for free, in my opinion. And I think you're dropping your showers well. I just don't think your army as a whole is contesting the space super well. The alternative is you can let them in for free, and then you can just go kill their healers who are back on B alone. It's kind of harder to do versus Dex players, but with the build that you have, that's a strategy that can work very well because you have more damage and less util. It is very hard to like look at this and be like, "Hey, I want to push that out." Like that looks rough to me. Like you see the amount of pressure this B push is making. This is why this is more popular now than other gate pushes because they're literally 1 foot away from the choke. Like if you don't win this as a defense, you can lose the war in the next 20 seconds. Oh, that was you. You freaked me out, man. That's a pretty good nade. You got the double down the proc on it too, which is nice. I'd still say, like, in this whole spot, just drop your nades, farm your ult on Nice Gauntlet. Drop your nades, farm your ult on Nice Gauntlet. Don't be on the blunderbuss here. You're just wasting time to get your ult. And your ult is what's going to really make you do damage. Like, that did no damage. Like, if you want to look at your BB abilities, like, when they do damage, you see this guy that charged, like, right over here? This guy right over here, he probably has no stam. He was probably low, which is why he charged in. And that's a free shot on your BB that will do a lot of damage and apply pressure. Because he won't be able to get out, and the healer won't be able to heal him all the way over here. Like, you see this guy right here, he's, like, kind of lower, and he finally comes over. You could have hit that guy, had him to half HP, you wouldn't be able to go for this play. Instead, he shot the guy in the clump that was under a sacred and effectively did no damage. Really good awareness right there. That's how why this build in BB is so strong. You wait for someone to stand themselves, you wait for them to be in a predictable animation, you just blow them up. But you have to be patient for that, right? You can't just shoot your nades and all your stuff at the clump right here. You have to be kind of wary for that and just look to do normal damage until that situation happens and then look to actually go in. Oh, you really want to get that shower down, man. You really want this shower down. Oh, this is really. Oh, get the shower down. Okay, you're scaring me. That's a really slow push. They could have had this on space. Pre-pot that too. I'd dust that. I'd probably cleanse that. Really good vines. Even then, Bio would have gotten a little bit more value, I think, but that Vine should have gotten that kill. It's just you didn't have bruisers that were being aware. It is like a situation with Vines where you often have to use it on top of bruisers because bruisers won't follow up on what you're doing, but you can follow up on what bruisers are doing better because bruisers tend not look around them. So playing off your bruisers a little bit more and playing in that area might be a little bit better. This is also very typical right now where people get into fort early and tend to generate a lot of pressure early, and that pressure tends to not stick as much later because there's less 50-50s that happen on this gate. But you see how those healers are just able to free cast on B. That's why that pushing through B strat is so popular. It's not necessarily stacking decks anymore, but applying pressure through B is very, very popular. Are you guys going to lose? Oh my god. It's like it's a longer VOD, so I'm like not that worried, but like god damn, that's risky. I don't know why this is bugging my bar down here, but oh well. We're gonna fast forward till their next push because they're just gonna be dead for a long time. So you have your ult here, this is good. You don't need to be on pylon anymore. You could be on blunderbuss trying to build those ramp stacks. That's the one case where I could see trying to be on blunderbuss a little bit earlier than the ice gauntlet when you're trying to farm is if you're trying to get those ramp stacks. But you really should just be shooting, wasting your ammo to get those ramp stacks at that point. I don't think you should be. There should be a lot of time just standing around if you don't have your ult yet. But if you have your ult, this is perfectly fine. This is honestly better because then you have your cooldowns when they actually push. It's a game of chicken. This is a game of chicken. If there's an SNS here, it's not a game of chicken anymore. This side just literally wins, or this side literally wins. SNS is that solid and choke when there's this many numbers. If it's like in the 15 to 20 level, SNS gets less value, but when you get talking 25, 30, 40 people on B, SNS is just king. And this inherently looks like a 25 to 30 man on B from what I can see of top level. So yeah, you just see what happens here. They flood in here for free. Your army is not rotated. This is really bad. You're in a spot where you literally have to just go here and then just trying to frontline their healers. Otherwise, you will die. That was a good bait. I didn't think it would be that effective, but it was really effective. You baited them in, you forced their stam, and then they just die. That's partially because well, it's mostly because the bruisers move too fast to just choke. If there's no resistance here and you try to speed through it, use your dodges, and you're not gonna have dodges for when it actually matters. I'm gonna fast forward through this. This is just cleanup. It doesn't really matter. You got next push. I like how you're on Ice Scotland trying to farm. I don't know if that's inherently what you're trying to do or not, but that was good in my opinion. I think you can look for a shower right here. Yeah, you look for it. I don't like the cleanse, but it's in hindsight, so if you're in the game, I can see why you would think to want to cleanse there. That guy could have been a free shot for your Zoth, but I understand why you want to hold your cooldowns. Really good shower. You could have net shotted there to avoid the stun. That's being really nitpicky. This is, I feel like I'm always talking about these, but this is a spot where you have had this ult for a very long period of time. If you had a bile here, you could just lob the bile and this group gets wiped and you get a free repair on B. Okay, maybe not wiped, but you could probably get like 1 to 2 kills with there with a bile. I don't know if I'd call it a good use of bile, but like it's an option that you have. Versus vines, you're very locked into this. Let me bait them through. Let me look for my vines when they overcommit, and then kind of go from there. I think vines is inherently better, like in this spot on B gate though, especially when there's more numbers here. It's a little bit worse outside. But bio also covers this whole area and hits all these guys for free every single time, and it will apply an exhaust, a disease, a slow, a dot. So it's I think you can kind of go either way there. But there definitely should be some biles on B, and IGBB is a really good candidate to have those biles. I'm gonna fast forward again. Okay, this is great. Oh, they did this. Okay, yeah, I've heard of this a little bit, but I haven't seen it as much. Some people rotate their entire like ball group to the back gates because they can get in for free. Typically, why this is not good is because you rotate your ball back here if your ball as an enemy team. So you throw your ball back here, right? Your ball gets to hell. Your healers are back here though, and they just get farmed by the Blues decks, which is why this is typically not super good to rush to point early because the decks just typically just get the kills here. But if your deck size blue are unaware, and often a lot of the times on the attacker standpoint, it is about making the defenders make a mistake, then this is a really kind of not cheesy, but it's a really easy way to win the war, especially because you end up on their healers, which are often staged on this like rampart area. So it's just a really easy way to get a lot of value quickly. So now you're just surrounded. This is a really sketchy situation. It's a good shower. I don't like the vines because you don't have enough pressure here. The vines isn't awful because it forces them to not be on point, which means you're going to delay the tick. But I'd say overall it's a low value vines. In this kind of situation, my inherent instinct is go for these healers. There's no point in trying to shoot this clump on B. Like I would play the edge, but I'd be focusing my damage on healers. Or if there's no tick here, then I would just be looking for healers. Once there's tick, I would go to point. That's like a rule that I sometimes break as a Daddy player if you have a ranged weapon, especially with a blunderbuss, because you could do a lot of damage here into healers. You could force the sacreds to not be on point, and then at that point, people on point will inherently die. So even though you're off a point in that circumstance, you can inherently bring a lot of value to people on point by just forcing out the healers that are naturally going to clump on B. The reason why healers clump on B a lot is this is the only spot in the game that a healer can play and LOS the point without having to full commit their entire body to be inside this choke, which is why people play on B typically a lot as a healer. Good tomb. I would have liked a little early ice shower to keep your team alive, but your team dies for that. I don't think it's your fault. You still haven't popped cleanse, but there's not a good reason to pop cleanse yet. This is really safe and good awareness to just disengage there. I like that BB combo. Force 2 pots on a guy that has no healer there, so it's actually good value even though it doesn't look like it is. Basically, where you should put your BB damage where it forces people to use cooldowns to compensate for that damage, not necessarily where they're getting healed, unless there's enough pressure already in this clump for this guy to die. Which is harder to see in the moment. So this guy is a good spot to be hit by your BB. But you see a guy at 100% HP, I would not use your combo on the 100% HP guy. I would use it on a guy that is 50% or 75% HP. Someone that you see like their health is not inherently ticking. That bruiser right there, I'd go for a combo. This guy here, I'd go for a combo. This guy here, I would go for a combo. Inherently, just trying to navigate to that like area, like bottom of point. That's typically where you can inherently get a lot of value, and then you can cause people to die on both sides. So you're kind of naturally doing that. You're playing in a little bit of a safer spot, but it's fine. That's a vines that got no value, so I think we're at like maybe 3 out of 8 or 3 out of 7. I think it's out of 8 that have not gotten a ton of, or 3 out of 8 that have gotten value. Versus with bio, I think it would have been closer to like 7 out of 8, maybe even more ults than that, because you can throw bio more liberally than you can vines. Which again, I'm not saying that everyone should be running bio, but I'm saying there should be a significant amount more people probably running bio. I don't see any bios on your B gate, and I think that's a big mistake. If this is pre-patch, I kind of understand that. Post-patch, I don't really understand that. Because pre-patch, it was rumored to be bugged, but if you actually tested it, it wasn't bugged. I only hold that against people because if you're in a top company at this point and you don't test your entire build every patch, you're doing it wrong. I figured out that a lot of the stuff I was using last patch no longer works on this patch because I tested it. And it's like frustrating, but it's part of the new world game at this point. And it's something that easily can make you from a tier 2 company to a tier 1 company. Okay, this guy is just, he just doesn't like you, man. This is a spot where it's like, if you have these melees that are swinging on you all the time, this is a spot where you think, hey, maybe I go Oak here. I'm not dying to BB very often. And I'm getting pressure from melees, so. Really, really good vines. Get a lot of juicy vines. I'm like harping on about the bile stuff to try to make a point, but you're definitely above the norm what I see for vines value. Oh, you should be dead there, but you're not. I think you nut shot there and you immediately go to tomb. Use the tomb as an iframe and then get out of that and then do your normal stuff. If that was Sapo, you'd be dead there. Probably Book too. I don't think you really did anything here, but your army won, and I don't really want to hold that against you at all, because I don't think you really needed to make a play. Like, just existing there inherently just made your army win. Because they're rushing through this V-choke really fast, which means they only have like a probably like 20 to 30 seconds to actually get pressure on point and start to tick, otherwise they'll just lose. Really big fight. You're in a position with vines. I think you look for vines here. I was gonna say this, but I didn't want to say it right before. One tiny trick that some people do is they will go in this choke a little bit early, and they will just tomb when the push happens. People won't want to hit the tomb because bruisers are powders, and they don't want to hit the guy with tomb. No offense to bruisers. And then you get out of that and you immediately just pop your vines and you hit everyone in the choke because everyone gets around you, and then you just have that circular radius. It's a definitely a cheese trick, but it works. And then you end up with your full stand bar too, so you're kind of safe. And you end up with 4 to 5 from the break in the tomb. So I was thinking like right here, instead of backing up, I would have gone in, dropped my tomb on top of this so that you get the CDR, and then out of that I would have broken it and then gone for a vine right here. Which sounds a little funny, but you would end up with a vines that probably hits 5 people, maybe 6, versus a vine that hit 3 people. So you'd be in a spot that's a lot scarier for sure, but you would get more value off of that. You're just spamming the vines. You can't get it off. Yeah, that's what you get. That's why you go for the tomb here. You break the tomb, you go into an iframe before you use an ability. You don't try to use the ability right away. That's why you iframe first, so you have that buffer to actually get it off. It's just so funny to me. I used to do that all the time too. And then you get a vines off that doesn't really have value at that point, but hey, at least you use the vines and you'll get your ult before their next push because you're on defense. I'd be looking to dodge here again to build your ult because of that pylon perk that I talked about earlier on. That's a really good shower, really good BB damage. It really should be connecting more. It's just not because you're not reading their actual animations and you're just going for your combo inherently like off a rhythmic thing. What I mean by that is like you look here, uh, so you get these guys in here, right? This is really good because you know that guy's coming out of repost. There's no way that they're going to dodge that. Inherently, as a BB main, you're going to want to shoot into a net shot in order to maximize your DPS. Which you try to shoot, you don't have ammo, and then you net shot back. You could have reloaded there if you're careful, and then this guy would have died. Instead, he lives and gets out for free. It's like a really small thing, but from a tier 1 company perspective, that's a mistake. Which I wouldn't say every tier 1 player is, like, perfect at all by any means, but that's what you're, like, looking at this level when you're trying to, like, kinda perfect the game. It's like a mistake in my eyes of, like, what you could be getting a little bit better value at. This is all good. That's where I want your damage to be. Perfect, right on that guy that's low. Right on this guy that's low. Yep, right there. Hit the shot, but you got the idea. If you don't hit the shot, but you have the idea, I don't hold that against you. It's just having the right idea that's, like, the thing. Really good tomb. This is where you dodge in, and then you go for that, and then you go for a dodge into net shot out, and then you're perfectly safe. So I'll talk about that slower here. You drop the shower. Why is the shower really good? This shower prevents anyone on their team from inherently being able to hit you, so that you could time your next key window perfectly for the next 7 seconds. You know you're going to have your ult here. So what I'd be looking to do here is I'd be looking to dodge in, go into tomb, gen your stam as much as you can, break the tomb, so that you're in a position like right here, and then you have your vines immediately after that you use in this radius, and it hits all these people. So basically, just baiting people with your tomb a little bit more. If they try to break your tomb, you could just break it at the end and then go for the vines because they're breaking your tomb and they're not going to be dodging. If they try to run past you, then you can just time it when they run past you and also just go for it. If they try to run past you, they're probably looking for a maelstrom or they're looking for a gravel that will put them in a predictable animation that's really easy to hit with your vines and can't be dodged. Another circumstance too, though, if you had a bile, you just bile this area, right? And then you hit all these people that are walking in. Like you hit this is a 15-man to 20-man bile, or it's like a 5-man vines, or you could do what you did, and that was a 0 to 1-man vine. So I'd say you're about 50% success rate with vines, which is actually a little bit above average, is what I would say. But it definitely could be better. I think you have the opportunity to be like 70 to 80% accuracy with vines if you're looking at the animations a little bit more. The other thing with vines is you don't want to shoot to hit everyone. You want to shoot to hit one person. If you hit more people, it's good. But if you try to hit everyone and you hit no one, that's really bad. But if you solo out one person, get one kill with vines is inherently a good vines. So I would aim for one person when you're surrounded by other people, try to read their stam, and then if you hit more, you hit more. But if you don't hit any except that one person, at least you can kill that one person. This is the part in Fort where this B gate int strat works a lot less well. For some reason, in the last 5 minutes, this strat feels a lot worse. I think it's because people tend to rush it through a B, and they don't really take their time anymore. And then they just die immediately. Yeah, that's where you start getting the keg spots right there. That's a classic keg spot from EU or NA or a ton of companies. They try to push back past here, they don't check their corner, they get blown up. They look at the keg, they push back the corner, they also get blown up. This is why 50 manning through B is like very, very dangerous. You still have no one that's showering up here though. That's so bad, man. Your entire army just lets them in, and then they go in here and they int, and then you win. Like you're not winning because you're better. You're winning because they're just being stupid, to be honest. Like these guys like don't rush into hell. They play this area. They try to control this space, and that just brings more people in here. They don't force their stam. They probably live. They get some sacreds that are actually in range because the healers can't heal the people up here. This could be very, very bad very easily. Like this is the kind of thing that you look at Egoed, and this is something that Egoed capitalizes on very well. No one's in the choke. Egoed gets in. They just win like almost every single time. Yes, you're finally doing it. You're finally seeing that the healers push up here, and there's decks here that you could instantly kill because you're a BB build. This is perfect. No, you hit the guy. Uh, you're so close. Well, at least you got the healer like basically killed there. Get to this area. There's no bows over here. You just checked over here. Get to this area. Control this choke. Drop the shower here. Shoot the healers that are likely going to play here or here. You don't want to be in range of the bruisers, but like this corner here, or like actually on the point, not like a little bit off the point, so that you stop the tick would be kind of good. There's just like little mistakes here that are off. Like, why are you off point right now? Now you're de-ticking, so it's fine to be off point, but if they're ticking and you're not on point, I think that's an issue sometimes if you can actually be on point without consequence. That's a very good. You drop the shower there, they can't back up. You drop the grenade on that. I like that play. This is good. Very tiny thing. You drop the pylon here, dodge so that you get the instant shot from pylon, so you get a little bit more ult charge. You were dodging anyway, you just dodged with the BB out. You dodge with IG out, you inherently get value. Especially if you have pylon down. Really good, not really good. Pretty good vines. It looked like it would be better than it was, but this guy was iframing. You aimed for no one, and you hit no one. You aim for this guy, you hit this guy dies. You aim for the other guy, that guy dies. Nice. That's a guy that you could have hit into a net shot and he could have died. I don't know if they're... I can't hear respawn timer on this, so you might have been staggering for respawn timer, which would be pretty normal. Yeah, it looked like you were. So that was a good play. This is the part where defense just hard wins because the attackers keep pushing and they stagger themselves. And this is because the attackers have a really, really fast attack strat, but they actually need to do a slower one at this point. That inherently takes more time because they're gonna be on essentially a 2 minute regroup after every push at this point, versus like a minute regroup. I think this 50-man B strat is inherently best between 20 and 10 minutes, and then after that, other older strats become more efficient. And as the time gets lower, a lot more complex strats tend to get better. Which sounds weird, but the dumber your strats are with the less time, and you're gonna get staggered anyway. Just like you might as well take the time to have a more effective strat, even if it's like 5% more effective. Like at this point, 5%'s a lot. You hear the urgency there. I don't really know if it's that urgent, but I won't blame you for that. You're cluttering a little bit. This is a West Coast play, I would call it. No offense to West Coast, but I do this a lot and it works. I don't think this works on East as much. You have vines here, you have net shot, there's a big clump over here. You turn around. So this is like a kind of a forbidden play. You turn so that you're facing this way. You net shot so that you go flying backwards, and then you go for vines, and then you go for tomb. Uh, yeah, it's definitely forbidden tech, but you still get like a 3 or 4K there. You could also go for that same idea like right here as well, and it would work if you just net shot it into the main choke here, and then you went into... Well, actually, don't. If you don't have tomb, I would not go for that. But if you have tomb, it's not as bad of a play. That's still a really good vines. That's... Yeah, this is solid. I'm not really saying anything here because this is just all solid. There's no pressure on point, so there's no point in playing on point early. This is a mistake you'll see with a lot of deady point players I probably should talk about. If there's no tick here, you don't need to be on deady point. If there's a tick, you need to be on deady point. And if you have more deady point on here, it will take more attackers to get the tick. But if you're a range build like BB and you have some damage, like, why not just be off a point during that time and actually doing like more pressure rather than just balling up and being AFK on point? I like this a lot, and this is like a more advanced thing that you won't see from typical players. It's like really good game sense. I like how you dodged the one animation. You went for your ult. Didn't hit, but good idea. You still have 50% efficiency with your vines. Have been tracking it though. Which is like on the cusp of like you should be on bile in my opinion. But the vines that you have hit have been pretty strong. They didn't result in a lot of kills, but they forced a lot of things, and then after over like 5 to 10 seconds they caused kills. At this point, this war is kind of it's not done, but it's basically done. You see all the bodies on the floor. These guys are all staggered. There's not much of a hope for 15k to win. I'm gonna kind of speed through it a little bit more until the last push. You still see this war is done. There's too many bodies on the ground. Good shower. That shower is a shower that wins wars. By the way, that's like understating. That's a good shower. You also play your life very, very well, but there's not inherently a lot of pressure that forces you to have to play on point. So, like, I wouldn't say that like you're playing well. Don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't say that like I'd say the most the part for you playing well is because minus 15k played the point phase bad, rather than like you being super tactical about it. But it was like still like for the situation that you're in was very, very good. And I mean, that's about the best that you could have played it, to be honest, given of what the content of the VOD is. That's the best that you could have played that on this. Your outside of point, I think, could have been a lot better, but your actual inside of fort was good. That being said, inside of fort is like relatively easy. Like, could have been like the IG stuff where you use. Or I'll start like writing notes at this point. Uh, if I had to narrow down into three things, it would be this. It's just like your Vine's efficiency is good, but could be a lot better. This mostly comes from like you inherently being more creative or trying to hit one person than net more, rather than trying to hit everyone and miss everyone. Kind of a mentality. Where your damage is going, this is target healers, not people in sacreds with your BB damage. And you're just looking to force cooldowns there. So if you have people that are not in sacreds, those are the people that you should prio, in my opinion. I just got one to charge ult. That's pretty self-explanatory, unless you need ramp, in which case be on BB. Which with your build, it happens with the heavy IGBB where you try to play more for util. This is not as a common thing, and you just want to be an IG strictly. I think those are the biggest things. The situational stuff, I kind of talked about that a little bit more. I'd say like kind of 3.5 actually contest the choke harder, like with bodies potentially. I don't think this matters versus minus 15 because they're just like kind of forcing it through the point and they're not really controlling the space around the point. But that's like a thing that you could be doing better. And then like another thing would be like shoot healers if they overextend uh, through B choke. But yeah, I mean overall still really good VOD. I could look at the scoreboard here at the end. Yeah, good kill to death ratio. Where are you at on assist? I mean, yeah, you're up there. That's just solid. Like you're not throwing your damage out all the time, so this makes sense. Like this is just like really, really good. I'd still say minus 15k kind of farmed themselves, but this is like overall pretty solid. All right, and that's gonna be it for this one, guys. Definitely would say look out for bio a little bit too. Like if you got your army to run like 1 to 2 bios on B gate, if they're gonna like 25 to 40 man push that B gate, bio inherently will tend to get more value than vines. So I would run 1 to 2 of those. It will exhaust people, put a disease on people, put a dot on people. Like it basically does everything that a Void Gauntlet and a Blunderbuss can do all in one ability. So it's just solid. But yeah, solid war, good gameplay, uh, good companies. So I'll see you guys in the next one.